I'm Evelyn Tennant. I'm the Associate Director of the Center for International Studies. I'm filling in for the Center for International Studies Outreach Coordinator, Jamie Bender, whose information you have in your binders. We also have some of Jamie's business cards here. If you want to get in touch with her or me, I can write my name and email address on them as well. Before I introduce the speakers, I just want to say a little bit about the Center for International Studies and the Area Studies Center at the University of Chicago and some of the resources that we can provide to your classrooms as you develop your relationships with sister schools elsewhere. The Center for International Studies and the 5 Area Studies Centers are all Title VI National Resource Centers, which means that they receive funding from the Department of Education to provide sort of expert training and also outreach expertise with a special focus on K through 12 classrooms, outreach to K through 12 classrooms. So we can help find experts who can advise you on great films to watch if you want to learn about a particular area, or to come speak to your class, or to work with you to develop curriculum. And we can also do things like find students from a region or who have studied in a region who could come talk to your class about what it's like to live and attend school there, from really rather informal things like that to, as I said, more formal things like curriculum development. So now we are going to go and hear from our 2 speakers. The first is Mark Amendariz. He will speak, and then we'll have Suzanne Carlson, and then we'll go back to Mark. Mark is principal of Abraham Lincoln Elementary. He also teaches 8th grade pre-international baccalaureate social studies. He's been involved with the Office of Language and Cultural Education in the CPS prior to becoming principal of Lincoln Elementary. His school has sister programs in Casablanca and Paris that he'll talk about today. They are especially I guess the Casablanca one is quite focused on curriculum, on science curriculum, which is why you hear this in the science and environment section. Our other speaker, Suzanne Carlson, is environmental program manager in the CEO's office at the Chicago Public Schools. And her position was created to help make Chicago one of the most environmentally friendly cities, and do this through the school system. And she's currently working to implement the CPS's Environmental Action Plan. So you'll hear first Mark talk a little bit about the basics of his programs, and then Suzanne will talk about the Greening Your School program, things that you can do to green your school. After you've been primed by Mark's talk to think about how you might work this into a relationship and sort of comparing and sharing things that you do in your school and things that your sister school might do. And then we'll go back to Mark, who will talk some more about the exchange relationships and taking students who are participating in these programs to Casablanca and Paris, respectively. So I will now turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Evelyn. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi. There you go. Good. My name is Mark Amendariz, and I'm the principal of Abraham Lincoln Elementary School. And this is the beginning of my 2nd year as principal at Lincoln. And I am very fortunate in the sense that I am following a principal that was the principal at Lincoln for 13 years, who I happen to share his same vision. So it's been a nice transition. A focus on world languages, multicultural education, literacy, and also foreign language or world language instruction. This ties in nicely with my past experience with Chicago Public Schools, as I was working with the high school world language programs. And so I'm just really extending this to my elementary school, where I work with the teachers, my team, and the importance of educating our children about what else is out there outside of Lincoln Park and outside of the city of Chicago. Lincoln Elementary School for the past 10 years has had a relationship with a school in Casablanca, Morocco. The school is called Groupe Scolaire Le Ced. And it's a school in Casablanca, Morocco They teach in Arabic, and they also teach in French. And this was a relationship that started 10 years ago, and this is actually the 10th anniversary of our jumelage, of our twinning, of our sister city relationship. It has been a defunct relationship for the past several years, and when I came on board last year as principal, it was something that I really wanted to address. It was something that was hanging over from the previous administration. It worked really well, and then things died down. And the question became, do we want to resume this relationship, or do we not? And if we do want to resume this relationship, why? Why do we want to resume this relationship? And what curricular connections can we have? Because there's one thing that I've learned in the past many years in the Office of Language and Cultural Education that we don't want to do, is I don't want to have trips be nothing more than a travel agency. To going abroad for foreign exchange, to take the kids just abroad and have our school, have the principal be the travel agent. It has to have a curricular connection. So the teachers and I met over this 2 summers ago. We met, and we had a long discussion on what we wanted to do. And we came up with the idea of having an environmental connection with our sister city school in Casablanca, Morocco. Why environmental? Because we wanted to do something that all of us had in common. Well, all of us live on the same planet. We all breathe air, and we all are responsible for where we live. So we felt this is something that we could come together to work on. It just so happens that in Casablanca, their school, they study Arabic, French, and English. And everybody in our school studies English and French. So we have a natural relationship of both studying French. We also have a relationship, something in common, and that's environmental science. So I began the discussion with the principal, it's a private school, the owner of the school, and his 3 principals about where we wanted to go. After I've already spoken to our teachers, and we decided as a group that we want an environmental program. So we began to discuss our curriculum as what we're obliged to teach according to Illinois learning standards, both from a foreign language point of view, according to the Illinois learning standards, and also from a science point of view, grade 8, because we were only going to take grade 8 students. After some discussion via email, we figured out that their students study geology in 8th grade. Our students study geology in 7th grade. And our teacher really likes teaching geology, landforms, various habitats, et cetera, the whole and the whole content area of geology. She really, really liked teaching in 7th grade, and she felt a little constrained about not going above and beyond what the 7th grade curriculum was allowing her to do. So she really wanted an excuse to teach geology for 8th grade. So I began to communicate again with the principal over there, and we agreed that we needed to meet. I had never met this principal before, and our science teacher never met this teacher before. So we did some fundraising, and the Sister City Committee of Casablanca helped us with funding tickets to Casablanca. And so I went, and our science teacher went to Casablanca with some members of the Casablanca Committee with one goal: to meet the principals over there and to meet the science teacher and the French teacher and the English teacher over there. And we met for a period of a week, and every day for half a day we planned lessons, we planned units. And I stepped back and I let our science teacher take the lead on this. This was going to be something that she really wanted to do. So she met with their science teacher and their French teacher and their English foreign language teacher, and they planned a whole semester around geology, about what they normally do in 8th grade and what we normally do in 7th grade, but we would take it to a higher level. So it became a science unit. And then we started talking about how would we integrate French into this. So the first motivation was science, geology. And then the language eventually came on board around the whole concept of scientific terminology. How do we talk about simple things that aren't going to frustrate the kids? What type of articles do we find in English and in French that the kids can read, part of the science class and also part of the French class? And so it became a really great and rich discussion between both schools. We left after a week, and then the two teachers got emailing. They were able to email. They were able to email on a regular basis, and they began a relationship. They began a relationship because they were able to meet each other first before our students actually were able to meet, and that was really, really important. That was the impetus of this project, and I'm going to turn this over to Suzanne in a second. But what I want you to do is, when Suzanne is presenting, Suzanne and I have worked in this past year or so on various other projects, the initiatives from Central Office, and where we're going with our school from Environmental Studies. As Suzanne begins to talk to you about some of the CPS initiatives, begin to think of some environmentally friendly initiatives that CPS is adopting that you can carry into your classrooms. Because something that we did not want to do, we did not want to create additional work for the teacher. We wanted to make it something that the teachers already were doing, that we're going to be more in depth, so it wasn't going to be something added on. And then I'll talk about fundraising a little bit later on. And I'm just going to show you right now, because it's always nice to get a chuckle out of some people about some of the fundraisers we do, because finding funds for these trips is always a challenge. So we found our teachers came up with some T-shirts that we're not selling here today, but this is something for you to take a look at. This is for our exchange with Casablanca. Our school is called Abraham Lincoln Elementary School. So there's a picture of Abraham Lincoln with a fez on, and on his lapel is an image of the Moroccan flag. And we also happen to have a sister school in France, so you can imagine what he would have on his head. And this is a T-shirt that we have with Abraham Lincoln. And so these are selling like hotcakes in our school. And I'm going to talk about fundraising later on and why fundraising is important, because we want to make sure all students have the opportunity to go. This is not only for children whose families can afford it. So I just wanted to give you the background on the curricular aspect of this, and then I'll talk about the nuts and bolts of the trip itself. Okay? Thank you.
So, as I was mentioning in the introduction, I'm the Environmental Program Manager in the CEO's office at Chicago Public Schools, which means that my job when I started was to come in and see what is Chicago Public Schools already doing around environmental issues, how are we going green, and then what could I do to increase that, share those success stories from one school to another, and really put some momentum behind that so we can reduce our impact on the environment and teach our students to be environmental stewards. So that's really what my job is, and I'm going to talk about kind of a hybrid of things today. One is really, how can you make your school green? What type of things are other schools doing, and what can you do, and what sort of resources are there to help you with that? And then how can you integrate that into projects you may be developing with sister cities, and how can you come up with projects that you're working on that you can share with them, or vice versa, what are they doing that we can learn from? So yeah, why don't you just be better. So we, as was mentioned, we have an environmental action plan for Chicago Public Schools. Just came out with that a few months ago, and that's our mission statement. And we are organizing our strategies around transportation and air, energy, waste, land, and water. We have about 26 actions, exactly 26 action strategies, actually, around these issues. So that what I'm going to talk about is issues related to these action strategies and things that you can be doing to help CPS carry out this mission. So the first one on transportation, the items we're trying to address are really how do we get to school and to work, and how do our students get to school and work, and how can we do those in more environmentally friendly manners. So as far as students go, I know for a lot of schools, our students walk to work. They may not bicycle to school. They may not bicycle all that much, but there's a lot of campaigns out there to encourage them to do so and to support that. There's an International Walk to School Day, which is in October. So that would be if you wanted to organize around that, and the timing was good with your sister-city relationship, you could make a campaign out of that. That's what the picture is on the upper left here, is a campaign where the parents and the community got organized to make sure their students were walking to school and to create a safe environment to do that. So that's one thing you could work on. And then there's also similar bicycle campaigns. There's the bicycle challenge we did at Central Office last year. It was the Bike to Work Week is the last, I think, the second week in June. So it actually was the last week of school, and we encouraged people in Central Office to ride their bike to work. And a lot of times you can get people to change their habits just by making it easy, saying this is a one-time only, try it for this week, figure out where to shower, figure out where to park your bike, work out all these issues, and then they may be able to do it more times during the year. We also can help get bike parking at your school. That's something I've talked with Lincoln Elementary about, and the city's got some resources to put some infrastructure. Transit benefits, this is really for staff, and it's a really unrecognized benefit that we have. We have about 17% of our staff who take transit to work all the time, and most of us take transit at some point, but almost nobody is taking advantage of the fact that you can get that taken out of your paycheck before taxes. So I'm really that's just really a sales pitch. Doesn't have that much to do with sister cities, but look into that. I'll give you, I have some flyers here that has the contact information about how to get that information. If you're interested in doing that, we'd love to get more people participating and taking transit to work. And then just really quickly, you also can look at this website, pacerideshare.com. If you want to sign up to join a carpool, you can either sign up with other CPS people or just get matched up with people in your neighborhood, and obviously reduces your costs in half if you're suddenly driving with somebody else, and it reduces your environmental impact by the same. So moving on to more transportation items. Something you can do to engage your students is no idling campaigns. It might surprise you to know that by state law and by CPS contract, school buses are not supposed to idle. Now, I don't know if this is what you've seen at your schools, on your field trips. It's not what I've seen as the norm. So if this is what you're finding, you can call this 800 number here and tell them what school you're at and what the bus numbers are, and ask them to talk with their drivers and do some enforcement, get the buses turned off. There are exemptions, so today's not going to be a good day to do that. It's pretty cold and they want the bus on to make sure the engine's going to work and to keep the driver warm. Another thing you can do actually is give a place for the driver to come inside and stay warm so they don't need to keep their bus on. So there's some things you can do around school buses. The law's already there to support you. And what you can do to engage students is more around the parental driving. This school, Saguenash here in the picture, organized their students to take on a campaign around this. They got some resource materials from the Chicago Conservation Clubs. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but they have some great project guides, and I'll give you a website link for that, to talk with students about how to organize a campaign, why is the issue important, and then what do you do once you find results and collect some data around these issues. Why it's important is obviously that if you're burning fuel you don't need to be burning, you're creating pollution and climate change impacts. Really, for what reason? Maybe just to keep the car warm and comfortable when the person could be walking into the school to stay warm. But what I thought was really interesting is they mapped out the area outside of their school, and all the yellow areas there are the impacted places where the parents are sitting, idling their cars, waiting for the students. So you can see it's like the whole neighborhood gets transformed at pickup time with the parents come pick up, and I'm sure a lot of you see that at your schools as well. So what they did is the students collected data, and the school council presented to the local school council and talked about this issue and got parents to sign pledge forms and say, we won't do this, we'll turn our cars off and come inside and get our students. So that's an idea that you could do and connect with your sister cities around. And then on energy, this is one of our top priorities this year. We spend $83 million a year last year for energy costs, and energy costs are going up as we all know, so we'd love to reduce it in all of our schools. There's a lot we're doing from the infrastructure side with lighting retrofits, with getting our computers to shut down, with a lot of the capital work we're doing, but so much of it is behavioral. We could probably be reducing our energy use about 10% just by getting everyone to turn lights off, getting the building engineer to shut down over the weekend, turn the heat off when people aren't there. So one great way to do that is to activate the students, get them excited about it, what sort of resources are being used and why. You can get into some scientific issues with what are the impacts of that and calculating how many lights does it take to make a watt and all these issues, and then have them reach out to the school community, ask teachers to turn off lights at the end of the day, and work with the building engineer on other things they can be doing to save energy. This is another area where the Chicago Conservation Clubs have some great resources. You can do an energy audit. They'll walk you through how to do an energy audit with students and then identify what the issue areas are and ideas about how to change that. And I'll just briefly mention that we have a technological solution now where central office, once we finish with our computers for the day, we log off. The computers update themselves, and then they shut down automatically. We're going to be saving about $30,000 this year with that solution in central office alone, and we're going to get that out to the schools in the next couple of months. Our previous policy was leave your computer on 24/7, and we're hopefully moving into a new era where the technology is helping us not just enable you to shut it down, but it hopefully will shut it down for you as long as you get logged out. So keep an eye out for that and start taking advantage of that. This is something that wouldn't affect as many schools, but some of our schools are moving towards solar power, and there's some great engagement opportunities around that. The picture on the right is the Academy for Global Citizenship, which is one of our new contract schools, and their executive director was here today. They just put in a 5-kilowatt system, and this is their student turning on the switch and activating dedicating the solar panels. The box that he's standing next to shows you how much power is being generated at any time, how much that's reducing from the load of the school, and also what the carbon impact is. So what is that doing on the grid? What sort of impact is that reducing environmentally? It's not just in the box here. They have a website that all the students can go into their students are all about that size. So the scientific lesson they're taking is maybe a smaller one. They're just excited about it, but you could really get into some scientific lessons around that. And since it's on the web, you could connect with your sister city and say, we've got the solar program, here's what we're reducing. Or maybe they have solar and we don't, and that's something where we could learn from them. So waste, I consider it sort of the 101 of environmental activities, because we're all dealing with waste every day. We all have paper go through our hands every day. We all eat something. We all generate some kind of waste, and we can be more thoughtful about where do we reduce and what can we recycle. So the first one, Paper Waste Busters, is a campaign. We like to say leading by example in Chicago. The government wants to be stepping forward and doing something first. Central office is leading by example with Paper Waste Busters. So we did a campaign for each department to compete with each other to reduce our paper use, and we helped the departments learn a whole bunch of strategies, including duplexing, not handing out huge reports at every single meeting, sharing things electronically, pretty obvious stuff once you start thinking about it, to reduce paper use, and then also buying 35% recycled paper. And we got a deal with Office Depot, I'll share the order number with you later, to buy 35% recycled paper at the same cost as the virgin and zero recycled paper that most of us have been purchasing. And if you go to this paper waste, so we're going to be rolling this campaign out to the schools. We're asking schools to appoint a Paper Waste Busters leader who would share these ideas amongst the school and make sure you're ordering the right paper. And if you go to this website, you can see what kind of paper your school is ordering. So we took the Office Depot 8.5 by 11 paper, so it's not all paper, but it's that type of paper, and we can show how much you bought per student, and how much of it was recycled. So that's another way where you can get the students excited, saying, well, why did we buy this much paper? Or why are we lower than these guys? Or why are we better than these guys? So that's something I think students could get interested in. Composting even more so. It's really tangible, really hands-on. Some schools have gotten these earth machines, which you put outside, and you can put yard waste and to some extent food waste, but it's not going to use a high volume to do composting outside. And then a lot of schools are doing worm composting in their classrooms, which has proven to be really popular with students. Is anyone doing that in their classes? Which is an excuse for me to drink some water. What's that?
I heard about it, where they'll actually eat the paper and everything like that, too. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, so you can put food waste in there, and then you have to keep it balanced with paper and leaves and some other things. And you can look at the science behind that. Why do you have to mix these different types of materials? What sort of chemical elements are in there that make that a healthy compost? Why do the worms eat the food? What happens with the soil afterwards? And then you get this really rich compost that you can use in the school garden if you have a garden. And I was talking to some people over lunch that students are just so excited about this. I get really excited about it. I have a worm bin at home, and I'm always like, oh my God, look, they made soil out of my garbage. It's so cool. And students have even that same reaction, actually, that I have. So I think it's a really cool thing, and that's something that it's a pretty simple project that you could also share with a sister city. So moving on. Recycling, I think this is also one of our top environmental strategies this year, energy, recycling, and school gardens. We have recycling in all of our CPS schools. That's somewhat of an under-recognized fact. I think people don't always know that. It's not always working successfully. I see some eyes bugging out. Maybe you don't have recycling bins in all your classrooms. We've really been struggling to get this activated in all of our classrooms. This is basically how it works. We've been focusing on paper and cardboard. That's pretty easy to do in your classroom. You can move on with doing bottles and cans in the lunchroom, in the teacher break area. You can also recycle batteries. We have a pickup for batteries through the mail run. Toner cartridges, cell phones. There's some other programs out there. But this is the basics of what we're doing every day and that we're hoping you'll adopt. It's on the backside of the green flyer I have here. And there's also contact information. If you feel like it's not working at your school, you can reach out and get that working. I think that would make a really interesting project to talk to your sister city about how do they recycle? Are they ahead of us? Are they behind us? I know that in Germany and other European countries, they're pretty far ahead. I was talking to some German friends, and they say their garbage gets picked up every 3 weeks because they're composting, they're recycling, and they're reducing, and there's just not that much volume. Whereas here, if the garbage truck didn't show up every week, I think everyone would freak out because we're so associated with waste being garbage. So I think there's some really interesting lessons you could do around that. And these aren't all science lessons. There's other curricular areas you can engage. So as I mentioned, school gardens is one of our other top priorities. We've been working with the mayor's office to see how can we better support the school gardens we have. There's gardens in about half of our schools right now, which is pretty exciting. And just how can we better make sure that when the teacher, a couple teachers or principal who was really passionate about it, if they move on, how do we keep that activated? How do we integrate it into the curriculum and make sure that we have really good lessons going on around that? And again, it doesn't have to be science. I know that a lot of schools use it for a reading area or arts facility. They're using them in a lot of different ways. So we want to develop more professional development around that. And so again, there's, I'll let you think of the ideas, but there's a lot of ways you could engage with other countries and what are they doing with gardening, what are they growing. Oh, one more thing, back for a sec. I wanted to point out, and this is coincidental, but this is Al Raby School. They converted their unused paved area here into a beautiful garden, and they dedicated it to Wangari Maathai, who was the Nobel Prize winner. She's known for planting trees in Kenya and around the world, and she was in Chicago, and she dedicated this garden. So it was a really great international connection that they had at that school. So water, I know a number of schools are conserving water and doing lessons around water. It's not as much of a capital priority for us because there's not much, we're not going to go in there and swap out our toilets anytime soon, what with the roof issues and everything else we have to fix. But there's, again, project guides you can look into as far as measuring how much water you're using, where is it being wasted, what can the students do to get excited and engaged around that and help conserve water. So that's what's coming out of the tap. And then on the other side, you've got stormwater issues. If you've got a flooding issue on your property, what we could do is, I'm working with a nonprofit that goes in and creates these bioswales, which will absorb the stormwater. It could take the whole flooding problem and make it go away, not even into the sewer system, but just back into the ground, which is where, for a million environmental reasons, where a better place for the water to go. There's some great lessons around that. How big does your rain garden need to be to capture all the rain from your parking lot, to capture all the rain from your roof? There's scientific calculations around that, and then obviously so much biology and science around the water issues. And getting towards the end here, engagement is so important. I've been mentioning ways to do this with your students and have them really investigate all these different environmental issues and find out what they can do to help, and then what other cities are doing, what other countries are doing around these issues. So just real quickly, a lot of schools have green teams where they've launched it on their own. They're looking into issues on their own. They're engaging parents and doing activities. There's also conservation clubs that the city runs. And then if you're in a high school, service learning can help you with recycling clubs or other conservation clubs. This is a picture of a school doing a waste audit where they took all the waste out of their lunchroom for one day, separated it all out, and measured the different parts of the waste stream. So the kids got really activated. How much got thrown away that we could recycle? How much got thrown away that we could compost? How much is really garbage that we're never going to do anything about? It's kind of ick factor at first, but once the kids really got into it, and these are older, well, these are probably middle school kids, but even high school kids that get into this, it can really change their mentality. This is Clissold School. I know we've got Clissold here for their Earth Hour activity. They did an assembly. These kids were very articulate, talking about the issue of global warming and what we can do to change it and swapping out your light bulbs and not driving as much. And they gave the whole 101 on that, maybe even 401, 501. It's like a graduate level class.
We actually we sold CFLs and LEDs this year as a fundraiser.
Great.
Came from.
That's a good point. There's more and more green fundraisers. You can sell those reusable water bottles. The light bulbs, there's a couple different green fundraisers you can be doing. And that was connected. That was on Earth Hour the day they did that, where we asked people to shut down lights for 1 hour across the city. And actually CPS shut down our lights from 5 o'clock, from whatever time the school's closed Friday to Monday morning. And we saved 9% of our energy that one weekend, which goes to show that we didn't need that 9%. Those lights could have been off every day, every weekend. So that was really a great impact that we had, and change that the students can help make. Just really quickly, this doesn't have as much to do with sister cities, but once you start digging into these issues, what is your school buying? Where can you make an impact? If you change from 10% to 35% recycled paper, you can calculate how many trees you're saving right away. That just makes such a big impact. And here's the order number that I mentioned to talk to your purchasing folks and make sure that they're ordering that paper number. Green cleaning, I'll just mention quickly, we do have a new state law that we're supposed to be using all green cleaning supplies in our K-12 schools. It has a great impact on student health, on staff health. You're no longer breathing in these toxic chemicals. And the environmental impacts are great because there's less packaging. You're not shipping water around the country. You're just shipping the chemicals, and then you mix it with water. You use cold water instead of hot water. There's a million ways that's important. And that might be something where you could share with a sister city, look what we're doing and the impact it's having. How do you clean your schools? What kind of chemicals are going on in your school? And then lastly, just some curricular resources. Chicago Conservation Clubs, I mentioned a few times, they've got these project guides around idling, energy use, and waste, and audits for all those things, and then what students can do to help. And then here's a bunch of, on this website, there's curriculum around a whole bunch of different environmental areas, how to compost, how to recycle, what are the classroom lessons around all that. So you can dig in there and look through. I'm not an educator, so there aren't any that I particularly work with or favor, but you can look through and find some stuff that can help you out. Just a couple quick notes. I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet. I keep in touch with teachers and principals and school personnel that are interested in these issues. I can send out grant opportunities, things like paper waste busters, campaigns that come up that I want to engage folks around. If you're interested in that, go ahead and sign up. And again, I had the flyers here if you wanted more info.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
For your batteries, there is a group out there that if you get in touch with them and you collect the batteries from your students, you send it back to this company, and they will reimburse you money at the end of the year. Sutherland School, I think the tech teacher got about $80
Okay.
just by sending back. And as far as and then for cell phones, there's an organization called Cell Phones for Soldiers, and if you send your old cell phones to this outfit, they will give telephone cards to the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's a lot of cell phone programs out there. Yeah, it's good to know.
We really need to move
Okay.
ahead
Thanks.
so that Mark can finish his presentation.
So again, the question becomes how do you create a sister cities program, an international exchange program that's not going to overtax your already overtaxed teachers? Okay, that is a really big question, and this is something that we had long discussions with at our school, and that is why we decided to go with geology, because it was something we taught, something we will continue to teach, and it's something that interests everybody in both our schools. And so this is not creating extra work to create a whole new curriculum. It's something that's already been done, and that we're just taking it up a notch to meet the needs of our 8th graders. It's really, really important that teachers don't feel overtaxed, because the program will not be successful, because they will think this is more work for me. It's already extra work by collecting money for airfare, et cetera, et cetera. We don't want to have them have to create a whole new curriculum on top of it. So the question becomes, for us, it was how do we fundraise, and what are the board regulations as far as traveling abroad, and also how do we get the whole school involved so this isn't only an 8th grade trip or an 8th grade experience. At Lincoln School, we have 4 schools within a school. We have a primary school, an intermediate school, an upper school, and a specialty school. Our primary school is K through 3, intermediate is 4th through 6, upper is 7th and 8th. In our specialty school, our French teachers, special education teachers, music, art, band. Those are the people that are included in the specialty schools. And they meet once every 2 weeks to discuss curricular issues within their regarding their school within a school. Last year when we did this, it became an 8th grade deal. So the only kids that were involved and the only teachers that were involved were the middle school teachers. And it was not a school project. It was truly not a school relationship. And we really wanted to make it a school relationship. So now what we've done this year is our chaperones, we usually have 6 kids. The ratio is 6 students to 1 teacher, 1 adult chaperone is the Chicago Public School policy. So we decided if we have 4 chaperones, we'll choose 1 chaperone from each of the school within a school. So we have 1 primary teacher going, 1 intermediate teacher going, 1 upper teacher going, and 1 specialty teacher going. Therefore, everybody in the school, each grade cluster is involved. And when the students come from abroad, either from Casablanca or from Paris, the primary school has a day and a half with our students, our guests. The intermediate school does. The upper school has probably a few more days, and the specialty schools. Therefore, everybody is doing something. Last year when we had kids come from Paris, our primary school kids took the kids from Paris over to Lincoln Park Zoo. And our primary school kids were teaching them words about animals, about habitats in English, et cetera, and the middle schoolers were then teaching the kids French and speaking to them more in French about the whole habitats, environments of animals, and it was a really wonderful exchange. something this would not have happened had this only been an 8th grade exchange. So it truly becomes a whole school experience, and the school becomes very proud in hosting international students, as well as they're showing themselves off. It's not only showing the 8th grade off, it's showing the kindergartners, it's showing the 4th graders off, it's showing the physical education program off, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that we found that works really, really well. Who are the students that go? We limit our trips to 8th graders. 5 years ago, I took 4 high schools to France with 4 CPS high schools, and we had 38 kids. It was too many kids, way too many kids. And it was a wonderful trip, but I learned never again where we take 36 or 38 kids. So now we have no more than 24 kids going to Paris. For Casablanca, we're taking 16 kids. Okay? Make it manageable. That means there's going to be some kids that can't go. Okay? So we make it competitive, academically as well as behaviorally competitive. Kids that are interested have to write an essay in French. They also have to have an oral interview in French. And they have to do this in front of a panel of our French teachers. We have 3 French teachers. What we did this year that we're not going to do again, and I'm telling you this because if you decide to do something like this, I'll tell you it won't work, is that we had the teachers sign off, yes, I give Johnny permission to go to Casablanca. Okay? So each of the teachers signed off. We're not going to do that again because let's say Suzanne is the science teacher and I'm the student, and I said, hi, Ms. Carlson, will you sign my trip permission slip to go to Casablanca? And if she says,
No, sorry.
what do you mean no? And she says, no, I'm not going to sign it because you're not behaving in my class. What type of relationship are we going to have the rest of the year? Probably not a good relationship because she blocked me from going. So we have taken the teachers out of the signing of the permission slips to go, because then it becomes a really point of contention between the teacher and the students. The student that is not being able to go. And sometimes it was just one teacher that said no. And so then becomes an issue with parents as well. So we're revamping this for next year. We don't know how we're going to do it, but we know already this did not work because it pitted a student against a teacher or a block of teachers. So our students have to pass an oral interview, and we don't pick the absolute best students that speak French necessarily. We choose the kids that show the most, that have put forth the most effort in learning French, that also have done really well as far as behavior. And because if we have some students that just are having a really hard time grasping French, but they're trying so hard, and their behavior is so good, why would we say to that child, you can't go? That wouldn't be fair. So we don't make it that you have to have straight A's to go. That'd be nice. But now kids are taking French very, very seriously because they really want to go on these trips. Unfortunately, there's some kids that end up not going because they're not behaving, but they know that. From the first day of 8th grade, we tell them, this is the criteria for participating in these exchanges. We don't want anybody to be surprised. And we found that to be very, very, very successful. Very successful. Also, it's been really great that we're going to go to Casablanca because Morocco was a protectorate of France, and so they speak French there. Many of our kids think Paris, French, or France, French. So a lot of times they don't think French, in Vietnam, French in Morocco, French in other North African countries. So this is a good cultural experience for them, in addition to, of course, being a science experience. Another thing that's good is why we paired the science and the French is because now we have science teachers and French teachers collaborating in developing units. That never was happening before. We communicated with the French consulate at the Alliance Française, and they sponsor from time to time workshops on pedagogy, and they brought in some French teachers who are science teachers. And so we send our French teachers to that. And we have more and more French teachers teaching alongside with the science teacher, and they actually collaborate now. And it's a really nice thing to see these teachers that never really would have collaborated on a unit are now actually planning units together. And it's really, really wonderful. Sustainability. We don't want children just to go over there for one trip and then come back and forget about it. So we continue this environmental studies program throughout the entire year. We have a club. We have a French club and a Moroccan club, and the students come to school an hour before the rest of the students once every 2 weeks, and they have a class. And we pay the teacher for that. And we applied for the after school counts and the All-Stars programs. We incorporated that into our grant writing, and so Chicago Public Schools funds it now. So they fund paying these teachers for these clubs. So the teachers are actually getting the respect they deserve by putting in that extra hour every week by teaching these students Moroccan culture, Moroccan dialect, French culture, et cetera, et cetera. So it really has been a win-win for everybody. Another thing that's important to understand is, as I was watching Suzanne's PowerPoint presentations for 3 times this day, but for the first time, each time I see something new. You know, there's so many things you could do. For example, I know there are 2 sister cities in China, I think Shanghai and Shenyang. And I saw on Suzanne's PowerPoint there was a cyclist. It'd be really cool to... Why do so many people in China cycle? Why do so many people in Italy use their bicycles where it's not so big here? And it's important for us to learn from other countries, not to go over there and expect, hey, we're going to teach you how it's done in America or in the United States, because they may have a different point of view, and we have to be willing to learn from them. And that's something that we really, really think is important, as opposed to being some individuals that going over to save another city or another country. So what stemmed out of this is now we have another project that kids want to do. They want to study air quality in Paris, air quality in Casablanca, and air quality in the city of Chicago. And our kids want to go to the city council, and they want to start talking about what their studies have found about air quality in the city of Chicago. So they're coming up with more and more science ideas that we're going to integrate into the French program. So it's really important that you have clubs after school. We have a Super Seeders, SUPERSEEDERS, Super Seeders, and it's an environmental club. We have a conservation club, both after school. And again, we have the Moroccan club and the French club, all of them coming together on a regular basis to teach kids how to integrate science and French. So we're really looking at this from a holistic point of view, as opposed to having everything compartmentalized. That's what I have to say about the actual the trip itself. Fundraising is another ball of wax. It's difficult to do. The trip costs roughly $1,400 for the kids to go. It's a 10-day stay at each one of the cities. We homestay over there, and then they homestay here. This is really important, why I felt it was important that the science teacher and I went to Casablanca prior to the exchange. I wanted to meet the principal of the school. I wanted our teacher to meet the teacher over there. Okay? So it's $1,400. Everything, the room and board, the meals are free. All of these field trips are free over there. We're going to go to Fez, they're going to go to Marrakesh, and there's no additional charge for them. Because when the kids from Casablanca, when they come here, when we take them to Springfield or when we take them to Art Institute or something like that, our host families pay for that, because that was what is done over there. Another thing is that we don't require you to be a host family in order to go. Some families don't have the extra space. Some families aren't able to open their home to somebody else. But we have enough families in our community that are willing to say, hey, even though my child's only in 3rd grade, I'll host an 8th grader. And so it really becomes a school-wide community event as well. So don't think that you have to have it be a perfect match, 8th grader to 8th grader, for host family stays, because you really don't have to. Broaden your horizons, and you can really make it work. Fundraising, we sell lollipops, we sell T-shirts, we do some other types of drives in our school, and again, this is planned during the summer so we get approved by the area office, so make sure we're in compliance with Chicago Public Schools. So that's some of the general things I want to talk to you about, and I think I'll hand it over to Evelyn.
I think we're pretty much
out of time, but if there are maybe just one or two quick questions.
So the question is, what about security issues when kids are staying with other families? That's where the relationship building comes and the trust building comes. I know pretty much most of the families by now, and I have frank discussions with them, and I have had meetings with both the French director and the director of the Casablanca schools about the importance of safety and security and picking families that we are familiar with, and that we have very serious, long discussions with families about the do's and don'ts. And we also have serious discussions about the cultural do's and the cultural don'ts. That's also very, very, very important.
I understand that part. But there are security issues, like, today in the world is a little different. Isn't it a little dangerous certain places?
Sure, it can be dangerous walking out this front door here, but we have not had any issues and with security issues. So I don't know if.
At Plaza Language Academy, we have an exchange program with Europe in 4 different countries for over 20 years. We never had any problem with those big families.
No.
I'm sorry, I just have a question. I might have missed it. Do you go during the school year or during the summer?
So the question is, do we go during the school year or during the summer? We go in the school year. We do not go during spring break. We go in April after ISAT testing.
And they come when?
And then they teach the kids come from the other school usually 2 weeks after or 2 weeks before. Okay. So we do both exchanges within the same year.
Well, we've run a little bit late. I think that's probably all we have time for. But please thank our speakers for their presentation.
Thank you.